Well, hello everyone. It's been a long time, but welcome back to another episode of World of Warships with CS once again. Sorry about the, inavailability or delay, should I say. Essentially, in the middle of July, I was given a job offer with the Rio Olympics down in Brazil, and I decided to suck it up and, go down there on late notice. So that's what it is. Didn't want to miss a chance to be a part of something special, I guess, if you will. Anyways, this game we're gonna be showing right now, it's actually the very first game I ever played in the USS Bogue, Tier 5 American aircraft carrier. Historically, I believe this was an escort carrier.
Autopilot mode enabled.
That was essentially built on the hull of a, should I say, civilian merchant ship. It might have been a Liberty ship or a Victory ship, if you know what those are. They were really mass-produced, efficient, and I guess low-cost designs for transport of goods and supplies in the war. Obviously, logistics in the war was a big deal, so there were plenty of these hulls that they were able to produce cheaply, and they were readily available. And obviously, having these escort carriers during the war, in one way or another, affords various military assets a bit of an air cover or air support. So that's what it is. As you can see, being essentially the very first game in this warship I played, I essentially have the stock loadout, which is one squadron with bomber and one squadron with fighters. I did free XP, I believe my hull as well as my aircrafts. So the torpedo bombers are, I believe, Devastators. Meanwhile, the fighters are F4F Wildcats. As it turned out, that this loadout was not a bad idea, consider, the aircraft carrier doesn't really have a large hangar capacity to begin with anyways. So by having more than 2 squadrons of airplanes in the air, even though on one hand you might be able to swarm and overwhelm the enemy at one given point in time, on the other hand, if you do not manage them well, or if you got overwhelmed and could not handle your units well, you risk excessive attrition of your aircraft at short notice, and not having the ability to affect the battle later on. And as you can see right now, I decided to essentially sneak my aircrafts down the southern and the eastern edge of the map. This kind of give them better survivability. Meanwhile, you might, offer my team a chance of a few early spots. So essentially, I'm doing scouting. I originally set my fighters together with my bombers, just in case I run into enemy fighters. Obviously, if my bombers do not have an escort, and especially while they are still carrying ordnance, if and should they run into enemy fighters, they essentially become free food, and they will more or less be annihilated in short notice. I decided to do a really quick torp drop on enemy Kuma, because I have already successfully spotted the enemy. Meanwhile, the enemy air units are spotted in the middle of the map, so I wanted to have my team win the air fight. And even though the torp drop was not really a manual drop, and out of 6 torp, only 1 hit, which is expected considering how fast and agile and quick turning the Kuma is, but such a superficially minuscule event or damage done as you can see, will have pretty serious consequences, because essentially the Kuma took flooding. I had to use his repair, which in turn makes him very much vulnerable to the rest of my team. And my fighters right now are still fighting the air war in the middle of the map, trying to gain air superiority while helping our team's Lanley, which is a tier 4. And to be honest, we are more or less just holding the enemy out, but not really having a good chance to win the fight, because I believe the enemy Bogue actually has an air superiority loadout, which is 1 dive armor squadron and 2 fighter squadron. So they have obviously a major advantage in terms of sheer numbers. Meanwhile, my 2 bombers have reloaded, and I found out this enemy Wyoming, tier 4 American battleship, it's almost standing still in the water. I was gonna go for a quick automatic drop, but decided to double back and do a manual drop instead for a tighter spread and a greater number of hits, which is, as you can see, is paying off handsomely. You see the stock Wyoming, aside from being very slow in a straight line, also turns terribly. So the guy has absolutely no chance of avoiding my torpedoes. Meanwhile, for some reason, he was stopped in the water, which made his chance to evade my attack even worse. Another thing to note about many of the stock hulls, as in World War I vintage hulls, for many of the ships in this game, is that there's a degree of historical accuracy to the way they're built, in that they have very mediocre torpedo defense.
The enemy team has taken the lead.
As you can see, for the torpedo hits, the enemy warship torque, there were 3 separate incidents of flooding. So he's essentially bleeding to death right now. And unfortunately, as you can see, my team's destroyer failed to hit the enemy battleship because they miscalculated the range of their torpedoes. It's a shame, because our team missed by a tiny bit.
Group 3, maintaining present course. Group 2, standing by for instructions. Over.
And I believe, unfortunately, our Lanley's fighters are being swarmed by enemy fighters. I'm trying to help, but given the fact that his fighters were tangled with enemy aircrafts, I could not really do a strafing run, because the strafing runs in that situation will cause essentially collateral damage and friendly fire. And given the fact that we are already low on numbers, I can't risk it at all. And unfortunately, in this case, I have no technical means to try to turn the tide of the air fight, so I essentially had to use my fighters to sacrifice themselves and tie the enemy aircrafts down, while my torpedo bombers try to do dirty work and help my team. There goes my fighters, unfortunately. Unlike the rest of my team, at this point I kind of noticed the enemies have essentially dominated and pushed through the entire western side of the map. They have long helped the cap there, and they have even taken over the middle cap. Meanwhile, on the surface, we essentially have 0 presence out west. So I must urgently do what I can to blunt the enemy advance, which is looking terribly dangerous and ferocious at this point. Consider they essentially have 2 top-tier battleships, and not just any battleship, but Congo classes, which are fast and well-armed and decently armored, with a lot of health, pushing down and dangerously close to our corner of the map. But then, and once again, they only have 2 squadrons, and the torpedo bombers take quite a bit of time to reload, unlike the Japanese torpedo bombers on, let's say, the Jueho, as you might have seen in one of my previous videos, should I say.
Maintaining present course. Group 3, ready for takeoff.
Meanwhile, our Lanley, it's desperately trying to dive bomb the enemy battleships, but consider the dive bombers in warships right now do not carry any armor-piercing bombs. So essentially, what he will do at best is to splash the enemy deck with HE ordnances, maybe start a fire and do some splash damage. It's really no difference than hitting the enemy with a derp gun and HE shell in tanks. And to be honest, even though the battleships are easy to hit with bombs compared to, let's say, a destroyer or cruiser, the piss poor alpha of these high explosive bombs on them just really don't do much. If anything, you have to use dive bombers. Probably your best chance will be to rely on the fire, which is really mediocre at best.
Taking fire. Group 3 awaiting instructions.
And
Group 3
as you can see, in his desperation, the enemy battleship managed to ran himself aground.
Group 3
So
returning.
perhaps that's why it was wise to be the second wave of aerial attackers to hit him. If you have read about the Battle of Midway, that was actually exactly what happened to the Japanese fleet. The American torpedo bombers shot up first and mostly got shut down because of their poor performance and low speed. But that ended up accidentally becoming a diversion and made the Japanese carriers in the battle vulnerable to American dive bombers. And ironically, they were rearming and refueling, so their decks were full of flammable and explosive things like bombs and torpedoes, and they essentially blew up. Go read about it, it's online.
Group 2 target destroyed. Group 2 awaiting instructions. Group 2 returning. Group 2 returning to ship.
And right now, things are looking terrible. The enemy holds 2 of the 3 caps, so they're beating us on points, and they're already 150 points away from winning, which means we have essentially no time. In terms of numbers, right now the fight is 5 against 5, which seems to be not exactly a dire situation if you're used to tanks, but once again, the points mechanics in warships is really a big deal. So right now there's 2 urgent needs we have to meet. One is to at least take over 1 of the enemy's caps.
Concentrate fire on the
Preferably 2, because taking over 1 will simply slow down the speed at which the enemy are winning the point by points. But given the fact that they are well over 400 points ahead of us, that means simply slowing them down will not be enough. They can still win because they're head start. And on the other hand, especially myself being a carrier driver in a very slow ship that barely do 16 knots and being really far away from any caps, my focus at this point is to try to eliminate enemy units and try to somehow equalize the points race by essentially killing the enemies. Because by sinking them, your team gains points, meanwhile the enemy team loses points. Yeah, it's kind of weird if you use tanks, but it's quite a big deal in warships.
Group 2 standing by for instructions. Over.
And as you can see, I'm going for an automatic drop instead of manual drop because of the island and the longer torpedo runs required for a manual drop.
Attack.
I did micro adjust my angle a little bit,
Approaching target.
but I'm not too worried because I know 1 torpedo hit will eliminate the enemy, and that's all we need right now. But he took 2 anyways.
Enemy battleship destroyed.
And now my fighters are doing a strafing run against enemy torpedo bombers.
Group 2 target
See, that's the beauty of the strafing runs, because you manage to take out 2 squadrons in 1 hit.
awaiting instructions.
If you were to fight them automatically and use time to cause attrition, you would have never been able to accomplish that. I mean, sure, if they are at that point attacking a friendly ship, by engaging them automatically, you might be able to scramble their formation and ruin their accuracy, which is a good idea, but I guess in my case a better opportunity presented itself, so I took it. Right now the enemy is only 100 points away from winning, which is obviously a very desperate situation for us. In terms of numbers, they are literally only down to 2 aircraft carriers. Meanwhile, we still have 2 battleships and 2 cruisers, plus myself. Obviously, being a very slow ship, I'm not really able to move my actual ship to that cap to stop the enemy points. So essentially, I am trying to scout out the parts of the map that showed it in, I guess, the fog of war, to hopefully spot the enemies. And there it is, the enemy Bogue. He apparently has a half-strength squadron of torpedo bombers, I believe.
Group 2, awaiting instructions.
Even though my fighter squadron is down to 4 aircrafts and it's not at full ammunition, or should I say full ammo capacity, I decided to try to spot the enemy as well as engage his torp bombers so that they will not threaten my friendlies, should I say.
Group 2, standing by for instructions. Over.
Meanwhile, my torpedo bombers, squadron at full strength, thankfully, is being sent over to engage the enemy surface units because they are literally only 30 points away from winning the game. So, unless one of our friendlies jump on cap immediately, probably within the next 20 seconds or so, if we are good as that.
Group 3, engaging enemy.
Here we are, menu drop, because I know the enemy is sailing my ship,
Group 3,
which is slow and hard to
returning.
turn. So I essentially try to take advantage and make the best, or should I say the most out of the tighter spread of my menu drop. And there goes the enemy. Even though he was already under fire from friendly surface units also, but given how tight the point situation is, we just absolutely cannot take any chances with it at all. And now my fighters are sent to the edge of the map to try to scout out the very last enemy carrier once again. But I'm not really having any luck at all. Consider the northwest corners clear. I decided to send them down on the northern edge of the map and to see if the enemy carrier is any close to the northeastern edge of the map. You know, as I said, there's only so many places they can be. I guess in a sense you can almost see this as if, you know, in tanks you are trying to chase after some guy's artillery in an in-game scenario. Without the whole points disaster being up your ass, of course. But thankfully, I believe one of our cruisers managed to jump on cap and stop the enemy from accumulating points when they only had 35 points to go. But you know, once we get that cap, the game is ours. Here it is. So all in all, this is really not a bad game for essentially the very first battle you play in a semi-stock ship. As a carrier noob, I must say that the Bogue can almost be a fairly potent weapon. The playstyle of it's notably different than the Rio, as in that you have only 2 squadrons versus 4. The squadrons are bigger and stronger. They have more HP. The torpedo bombers are good at mass attacks and area denial, which is very satisfying. The fighters are solid. They don't really fear anything they run into. And also, even though you lack the ability to be able to split your firepower and engage the enemy at multiple areas of the map, simply the fact of not having so many squadrons to deal with allow you to focus and allow you to not be distracted, not be overwhelmed, and to try to micromanage what you're doing with your assets. Especially the fact that you're not so busy with so many squadrons can really give you the time and chance to do more manual drops, which is obviously an excellent thing given the way the ship is. Consider the fact that your spread is fairly tight. The torpedo runs in manual drop mode is shorter than how things are with the Japanese. So I guess I made a good experience and good profit. And my noob captain definitely gained a lot of experience. Well, hopefully in the future I won't have to keep a replay for more than a month before I put it up online, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll produce more stuff. Stay tuned.